Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is October 11th, 2017, 8 o'clock in the morning here in the West Coast. I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and it's pretty gray outside. Looks like it's starting to look like winter here, where we have nothing but nonstop gray, you know. I made a little poem about Eugene a long time ago. May to September, it's a land to remember. October to May, it's the land of the gray, and that's kind of what happens. Somewhere around May, you never know, it can turn sunny, and then from then on, it's just gray. But we want to thank you for joining us today. We have with us Jerome Hebert, who is he's called the Sane Environmentalist on YouTube, and he gives his thoughts. He does research on nuclear waste, the nuclear catastrophe that we find ourselves in, the age of fission, so to speak. And he also does I Ching readings on his YouTube channel, which I find very fascinating, and I love the I Ching. I've used it for many years, since 1980, actually. So, Jerome, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome to be here.
Yeah, so I saw yesterday you were talking about the state of how the heck did we get to this state, and it has just been a series of really gross negligence. That's an intentional gross negligence. That's been the biggest thing that I've discovered. Isn't that what you found?
That mostly greed, you know, and the greed, of course, allows for the gross negligence.
So you think it's just greed that drives them, that the gross negligence stems out of greed? They just want our money.
Well, I think that initially it started out as a save us from the Russians. They'd figured out that they could produce electricity, and that's where the greed stepped in. And then the power companies, General Electric in particular, said, hey, we can build these plants and we can make tons of money, and then we can sell the spent fuel to the Department of Energy. And so we don't have a waste problem, and we make money coming, and we make money going. And so that's what happened, you know, and they made as much of the waste as they possibly could because they were selling it, because the Department of Energy wanted it for plutonium top hats. But, you know, now we've got plenty of plutonium. So for the last, I don't know, you said 2014, and finally the Department of Energy was like, yeah, we don't need any more. So you guys are just going to have to figure something out. You know, and so that's why now we have the nuclear accumulation.
That's true, but we have the Nuclear Waste Policy Amendment Act that's going of 2017 that's working its way through the Congress. It used to have 39 or 38 co-signers when I first started paying attention to it. Now it's got 109 co-sponsors, so it's picking up speed. And basically what it will do is privatize nuclear waste and take away our water rights from the federal government and give the people who have the nuclear waste the authority to do whatever they want with it, essentially. And it eliminates environmental impact reports and congressional oversight. So people need to be calling about this. You need to be calling your Congress people and say, you better not vote. Look on the co-sponsors, 3053, HR 3053. See if your representative, your congressman is on that list of 109 people and tell them, get off of that, because this is a Nuclear Waste Policy Amendment Act written for, by, and of the nuclear industry. It is a true threat to our country, to be honest. It is unconscionable. It's unconscionable what they are thinking of doing right now in Congress. And they're just like, and as it goes through Congress, they are hearing that it's really a cost savings measure. That's what our Congress is hearing. It's a cost savings measure. So people, in fact, I really encourage everyone to go to santanofreesafety.org. Look at Donna Gilmore's page. She has drop-down menus about the nuclear waste canisters, the cast. There's a handout that will tell you, if you look into handouts, that tells you how many canisters of nuclear waste we have in this country, how many are half-shell tanks, how many are double shell, how many are single shell, and how many are actually bolted as opposed to just put together seamlessly, like without big bolts or without being one big piece. So it is up to us, Jerome. I mean, this is why I'm glad that you took up this moniker, at least, what was it, 6 months ago, when you really got a grip. Yeah. You're kind of new in this. I've been doing it now since 2012. May 2012 is when it hit me like a ton of bricks that we've got a massive problem, to be honest. That's when I woke up about this. And I have to admit, it is an exercise in not just futility, but it's an exercise in constant propping yourself back up, because in the anti-nuke movement, even the anti-nukers, like the anti-nukers that are establishment, don't particularly like the people that are on YouTube. They think we're a bunch of emotional nut jobs who don't really understand the whole process and what we're talking about. So they don't want to talk to you too much. They don't engage. I mean, they really, if you write them or call them, they're not rude to you. They just don't get back to you. They're super busy.
Yeah, super busy, huh?
Yeah, super.
Well, yeah, and I learned just yesterday that cancer has become the number one cause of death in the state of California and in 20 other states. And
I believe
it surpassed even heart disease as the number one leading cause of death.
Wow.
So, you can take that for what it's worth. You can say that whatever you want about it, but I believe that the ever-increasing levels of radionuclides in our environment are creating cancers. 1 in 4 deaths in California was caused by cancer.
Wow.
So, and the new safe levels, I think they call it PET levels, that the Obama administration placed into place, are like if you drink a glass of water that has that level of radionuclides in it, they say it's like getting 250 chest x-rays from one glass of water. And that doesn't include any hot particles that may be in the water, which are almost guaranteed to cause you cancer once they get in your body. So it's gonna get worse and worse and worse, and I think it'll finally be when enough people start dying and getting cancers that they will, the other people will finally start to wake up and realize that this is an issue. But there again, it's an issue, but what do you do about it?
Well, especially when 3053 passes. What are we going to do?
And it will pass.
I mean, unless we can get a lot of people. I mean, honestly, if we could just get even 2,000-3,000 people calling their elected officials is enough to stop this bill. I bet you 2 to 1, 1,000 or 500 or a very small amount of numbers who could call and stop. If people really genuinely called and battered these people, because they're cowards, they don't want to lose their jobs. They want their cush jobs. I mean, who wouldn't? You know, your congressman making, 100 to 150,000 a year to 25,000 a year, and you get to go. You take the whole summer off. You have vacations all the time. You're not accountable for the work you get, and you get 100% free health care for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. That's a cushy job, huh?
Yeah, even if they don't get reelected, they still get their health care. Isn't that an interesting little fact?
Yeah.
So it's an outrage that we let them get away with it. But this thing about the nuclear waste, this is kind of, when you talk about cancer deaths, wait till these corporations have the legal right to dump the nuclear waste into your little creek or your little river. You go to the government and they're like, well, there's nothing, just like the Price-Anderson Act. The Price-Anderson Act, they can do whatever they want with indemnity. Nobody gets convicted. Everyone is held nobody is accountable in the Price-Anderson Act. Yes, they have a limit on how much they can pay in damages, but no one is held liable for knowingly or unknowingly causing harm with nuclear waste. That is the law.
Yeah. So basically what it is we've created this giant mess. We, the people, have allowed the government, in the name of our safety and in the name of electricity, quite frankly, to create this huge, huge mess. And it is a untenable situation. There's almost literally nothing that can be done with this stuff. These fuel bundles, that's what really worries me. The liquid waste is horrible. I agree. But the fuel bundles, the used or they call them spent. They're not spent by any means. The unstable fuel bundles that they're pulling out of these reactors are going to be around for 250,000 years, and they're going to be deadly for 250,000 years. I mean, imagine where mankind was 250,000 years ago and how far we've evolved since then and where we will be in another 250,000 years. There's no telling.
Well, I have heard, and honestly, to me, this nuclear waste issue really was the only thing that made me start believing in that Agenda 21, now I guess they call it Agenda 30, 21 issue of eliminating, 2/3 of the world's population. I always thought that was hooey until I started, this is the deal. It looks as if, now from what I've understood, there are solutions to the nuclear waste that would radically change how we do providing electricity to the grid, even the healing process, the whole thing as we know it. We could have these revolutionary free energy sources. We could have revolutionary cleaning up of toxins. They do have the technology using sound, using mushrooms, phytoremediation, electromagnetics. There are options out there that they've discovered, but for some reason, in quotes, some reason, we have no idea. They're just not allowing it to come to public use, which...
Well, and therein lies the greed, because that would cost money. If you could take this stuff and stick it in a dry cask and forget about it, well, why would you bother to spend the money to try to fix it? They're not interested in fixing it. They're interested in making money. So and that's
do you think that it's that simple, that it's just greed? Like it's not some big agenda to terminate a lot of people on this planet and make a lot of people sterile?
No, I think that is an unfortunate side effect of the consequences of it. But was it an intentional thing? I'm not thinking so. But that's just me. I could be dead wrong on that. But, already, cancer's killing the 3/4 of the deaths in California are from cancer. And in the 1800s and early 1900s, cancer wasn't a big issue in California. It was heart disease that killed everybody, or more probably accidents and other things that killed people. So the fact that cancer is rising up tells me that those are man-made products that are creating the DNA damage that is creating the cancerous growth in people's bodies. And then number one for men is prostate, and number one for women is breast. So,
wow. And children.
3/4 of the women in California that die from breast cancer right now. That's a huge number. I mean, that's a huge number. Giant number.
Yeah.
And so, is there an agenda? Doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because we are seeing the results of the folly. I'm going to call it the folly of the greed. And what it is the greed has caused. It's the same thing with the oil industry. It's the greed. It's the greed that allows them to improperly create a well in the Gulf of Mexico that has massive amounts of pressure, and then when the lid blows off, they can just sit there for 2 years thinking about how to fix it. And, now the Gulf of Mexico is horribly contaminated with crude oil. They could have done that right in the first place, but they didn't want to spend the money to do it right in the first place. That's what these energy companies are only interested in: cost versus profit. And when the cost rises, well, that's not good. That cuts into your profit. And you can believe that a lot of these Congress people who are voting for this new nuclear energy waste bill are funded by these big energy companies. And, I mean, if you follow the money. If you follow the money, you're always going to find out that people in Congress vote the way they vote because of the people that fund them. And you talk about a cushy salary and stuff, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They're getting other things on the side from the energy companies and from some of these other companies, healthcare companies, insurance companies, that are basically pushing their agenda, And you could call that, I don't know, the cabal, maybe.
And they all get treated like royalty. That's the thing. Like, especially now, post-Bush Jr., you cannot go into the Congress. You can't. People that enter into those houses, you get screened. You are terminated. You cannot protest. You cannot speak out. A lady has actually been convicted for laughing at Jeff Sessions while in his hearings, when he said he was honest. A lady has actually been convicted for laughing at Jeff Sessions of harassment, basically it's a very serious, I think they pursued a felony, like interruption of a government hearing or something like that. It's so outrageous.
God.
Yeah. I mean, this is how insidious.
He is laughable.
Yes, but you know what? These people are dangerous. I keep calling Corker's office and telling him if he really believes the White House is an adult daycare center and that Trump is really incapable and that we really do have these three people holding it all together, he has an obligation to invoke the 25th Amendment, which states that if somebody is incompetent or mentally ill or shows other signs of not being able to run the presidency, then he ought to be removed. You have hearings and you stop his authority to conduct. He's not removed immediately. There's a process. But it stops his ability, it stops his ability to conduct war and to make major decisions until those hearings are completed. So this is a serious thing that what's going on with Trump in our country right now. This is not just, he's a strong man and he just because, you don't like him because he cusses and he's crude and he's, a people's guy. That's what people want to present this guy as. Yeah, but there's a certain point where you have to be competent in foreign policy. You have to have a little bit of humility to learn. I mean, yesterday was Tuesday? Monday or Tuesday? He's gone golfing. He went golfing yesterday in the middle of a work week. Who goes golfing in the middle of a work week? Someone who thinks he's the CEO of a company.
Ever been in the office.
How many times?
I beg your. Him. Don't get
yeah,
me
but
wrong.
you know what? This is the thing. This guy
Obama
goes golfing.
Spent half his presidency on the golf course, for instance.
Okay, Jerome, you are buying the Kool-Aid here, brother. Do you know that Trump has gone golfing more than Obama did in his entire 8 years?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, already. Yes. I mean, it's...
What a vacation, huh?
This is what makes it...
$25,000 a year vacation.
This is what makes it so outrageous. I mean, who plays golf? This is updated October 10th. I'm going to find this. It was 1 day ago. Who plays more golf? Because people are beginning to get outraged. Because that was one of his things. I'm not going to have time. So, we don't have time to do this. Hold on, let me put a stop to this. Up to date, okay, tracking the number of trips. Obama went 22 times. Already Trump has gone 29 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he probably took Air Force One to do it, huh?
Well, this isn't the same. I beg your pardon. It's not the number.
Secret Service agents.
Tracking the number
during...
Okay, I beg your pardon here. Tracking the number during I misread this. Tracking the number of times Donald Trump has played golf compared to Barack Obama at the same point in his presidency. At the same point, we're comparing apples to apples. Obama went 22 times. Trump's gone 29. But you know what that kind of tells me? Is that big decisions are made on the golf course. That's when you talk privately and you let people take over and you give people the dirty down. Because there's know for sure you're not in an office where there could be any bugs on you.
Exactly. That's how the cabal works. That's how I don't know what to call it. The deep state. The people who are really in power and really in control.
The Mercers, the new money.
Mercers, the Podestas, that whole what's his name, George Soros, and all of his ilk.
The inner gang, the two sides fighting each other. Well, this is the point, though. The way we have lost track of our government, however, has been the fact that Americans do not participate. That really exactly is where it's at.
Nuclear waste problem.
Well, here we are with the nuclear waste. Is anybody out in the streets? Does anybody protest? Is anything going on? Do you know what I mean? Like, the Enola Gay is the 29th. The 29th is when I went out to, where was that? I met Kevin Blanche for the first time on the 29th of September. We went out there and had a protest at the Enola Gay's first, at the old hangar out in the desert in Hanover. I think it was Utah or Nevada. It's right on the border of Utah and Nevada. And it was really eerie. It's all decrepit. It's all broken down. And then there's old barracks from the military, and then there's the old hangar, which they're renovating, but they don't let people on. And then there's some newer military sites, and then there's some housing that's spruced up, and big casinos. It must be on the Nevada side because it's on the casinos. There's big casinos right there. It is so eerie to think about that this was the secret. You really wonder what people were thinking about in those days, the level of paranoia. To be able to maintain.
That's what it was. Exactly.
It's kind of like
a fear-based, the Russians are going to get us. I was reading an article today about the molten salt reactors and how they can, if they wanted to, they could use those to actually burn up some of these spent fuel rods. There are, like you said, technologies available. And now they're starting to pursue that because the water cooled pressurized water reactors are now unsafe, and they're having to shut them down all over, and they're not recommissioning them, and so they're having to figure out another way. And so they find, we can use this molten salt, and we can actually, instead of having to process new fuel, we can just use this quote-unquote spent fuel that we have tons of, and you grind up those pellets and incorporate them into this salt reaction, and it eats the plutonium. It burns it up. And say that at the end, you end up with a product that you can shield with foil. That's how lowly little radioactive it is. So, yeah, that's kind of hopeful, but, you know, somebody in the comment section, a couple people in the comment section basically commented that, well, thank God that they did have those pressurized water reactors, or we'd all be speaking Russian right now. And I can only say, yeah, see, that's
Wow.
the thing. It started out as the Russians are coming.
It's kind of like the demonization of Russia right now. Like,
right,
you know,
exactly.
I get it. I swear, I'm still adhering to this idea. I do think that the Russians did mess with our election system, but I will tell you what, I really firmly believe it was the Democratic Party who contacted the Russians to help them figure out how to destroy Bernie. And when they did, those little Russian hackers turned around and said, okay, now let's see what we can do to help along who we want. You know what I mean? And I don't think the collusion by Trader Trump was about the election. I think the collusion was about, he lied about his tax returns are going to show he has big interests in Russia. So I think we just lost Jerome there, folks, just a second ago. Jerome, are you there? Let me give him a call, see if I can find him again. Let's see. Sorry about that. Right in the middle of our thoughts. Let's see if we can give him a call. Is it going to work? It sure doesn't look like it's going to work. Maybe it will. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? That's my little singing. I'm the music while the phone is ringing.
Please leave your message for...
No, that is not Jerome. Jerome is not going to answer. That is no bueno. So hopefully he will remember to give me a call here. So that's just the way it's going to be. Halfway through the show. Here he is. Yay. Let's see. Successfully add him to the group. Jerome?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. These things happen. You know, this is what happens when you do alternative radio and you don't have big, gigantic studio set up. We do it on the fly. So it's part of the deciding we're going to make it anyways routine, right? So
exactly.
And that is kind of where we're at with the nuclear industry. Like, really, we are realizing that we are in the stew. World War III is not coming. It's here. I mean, this is the deal. Like, we are really in the stew. This nuclear waste issue is very real. And it is already causing deaths. I mean, did you see that story about all the sharks that died in San Francisco Bay?
No, I didn't.
Oh, my gosh. Hundreds of sharks rolled up on the bay in San Francisco. And, they're like, again, it's a mysterious reason. It's a very mysterious reason.
It's all mysterious, isn't it?
It's very mysterious.
Well, we've got the bottom of the food chain, all the krill were washing up. And now we got the top of the food chain, the sharks. So what that tells me is that the whole ecosystem of the Pacific.
This is what it says. This was October 5th. Thousands of sharks in San Francisco Bay and other marine life, quote, mysteriously dying. You know, this is
testing them for radionucleotides.
As a matter of fact, they are not. We know that they are not. We know they do not.
They're testing them for other poisons, or cancers, and we know sharks don't get cancer.
No, they don't actually test them for cancers. In fact, I don't think they actually do test them. They test them for chemicals, and they test them for carbon. They want to see how much carbon and all that stuff. As many as 2,000 leopard sharks mysteriously died in the San Francisco Bay over the past few months. So
they're such beautiful creatures too, that's just, it's tragic. It's tragic to me that, our grandchildren are not going to be in a world that we lived in, that we grew up in. Are you there?
Yes, I am. And Jerome, listen to this.
Yes.
The scientists about these, Okihiro, he is a scientist who works at this observatory in San Francisco. He believes a parasite may be behind the mysterious die-off of that plague the Bay Area. Listen to what he says. They helped him identify a parasite DNA in a large number of those shark examples. What's really interesting is the way they twist the language, because we know nuclear radioactivity messes with your DNA. So now they're calling this a parasite DNA. And we know for a fact, because we've seen these scientists over and over again ask, are they testing them for levels of plutonium? And you know what they say, why they don't test them for plutonium? Because they can't tell whether it came from World War II or if it came from Fukushima or where it came from.
Yeah.
But
why would they
you understand the science. Do they have an ability to test plutonium and tell how much plutonium is in an organism, or you know what I mean, the quantity?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they can tell you exactly how many becquerels per cubic inch that there are, and they can break it down, and they can test for plutonium, americium, and all of those things.
Listen to what the last sentence in this story says. Humans who swim in the bay or eat infected sea life are unlikely to become infected. Wow.
Yeah, of course, because we don't have DNA, right?
Not one word about radioactivity in this entire story.
Yeah.
That's unconscionable.
That's basically the cabal is in charge of the media. You know, the only media that you're going to find that's true and real is the independent media, like the Age of Fission, my channel. There's a few other out there, and Ms. Milky the Clown, Strontium Milks. There's a few valid, good people that are actually putting the real news out there.
Well, Nuclear Hot Seat does. I think the best one, frankly, the very best one is Nuclear Hot Seat. That's what I think. She gets interviews with the mainstream anti-nuke activists. They talk to her because she's a journalist professional, and she knows how to interview. She plans the interview. She has a whole studio set up, so they will give her interviews. They're not very comfortable doing things on the fly, all these guys. They want to have a pre-recorded thing, and they know. Like, I get very emotional, and I'm willing to challenge people on what seems to me like, I don't know, like when I had Chris Busby on the air. It seemed absurd to me that the nuclear industry is not testing the fish to see if it's affecting the microscopic life in the ocean. The anti-nuke activists ought to be saying...
But they're not releasing the results of those tests.
Yeah.
Okay? They know. Don't think that they don't know.
Well, I guess maybe that's really the issue, right? Do we really need to test?
Yeah.
I mean, that was my point a few months ago. Do we really need to test? John Goffman told us in the 60s and the 70s exactly what was going to happen. It's a scientific fact. We are headed for the iceberg.
Absolutely.
In fact, we've hit the iceberg. Fukushima was us hitting the iceberg, folks.
Yeah. And to all your listeners out there, I would encourage them to... I don't know. There you go. What can you do? What can we do? What can we do? We can lobby our Congress people.
Well, one thing we can do is clean up our own diets. We can clean up our own diets. We can ingest good things. We can decide that we're going to have a happy attitude, that we are going to figure out a way. We're going to decide in our thoughts. We don't have to have the answers right now, but we're going to figure out a way out. And it's going to work out. That's the only thing, that having a positive attitude, I think, is the only way that's going to get us out of this, because there are solutions. Like I said, there are solutions that really that are being oppressed. It's almost as if they really do want to harm the planet. When I read about these mass animal deaths, it's just unbelievable. India has just got pollution everywhere.
The beginning of the wave.
Yeah.
Because now Fukushima is pretty much all the water that they were putting in tanks getting dumped right into the ocean. And the International Atomic Energy Agency has recommended quote-unquote controlled releases of the water that is in the tanks at Fukushima. And what they mean by controlled releases, I don't know. But basically, Fukushima is pumping gigabecquerels of radiation into the Pacific Ocean every day. Gigabecquerels, not, billions of disintegrations per square meter of water into the ocean. And I would guarantee you that there's not many fish left within a 10-mile radius of Fukushima. And as well, the ocean is actually heating up around there quite a bit, like as much as 7 to 8 degrees Celsius, in the winter, and they're saying, well, that's about volcanic activity, even though there's no volcanoes nearby. So they're literally turning the ocean into a gigantic fish soup. And there's, actually Arnie Gunderson, I saw an interview with him, and he talked about this product that you can use that absorbs the radionuclides out of the water. And if you were to dig a trench deep enough and fill it with this product, it's this mineral product, that would absorb 90% of the radiation coming out of the plant into the water. So that would take it from gigabecquerels to, I don't know, thousands of becquerels. But that would be an improvement at least, But there again, it's like, the greed of the nuclear industry combined with you can't say that the original thing wasn't greed, it was fear. And then the energy companies picked up on it, and we know how the big oil companies and the big energy companies are. They don't give a damn about the environment. They only care about their bottom line. And when it comes to getting busted, well, they know that all they're going to have to do is pay a fine, and they build that in. They build that in advance. Okay, we're going to get fined for all these environmental catastrophes we're going to cause, so we're going to put aside a fund just for that. And so they're covered, and they're not going to go to jail. If a few of those CEOs went to jail, there would be some changes, but they're not going to go to jail because they're immune. And what can we as the people do? I guess you're right. We can only eat healthy, don't eat fish, unless it's freshwater fish caught inland in a safe place. I'll never eat tuna or salmon or crab or lobster or shrimp again. And I love all that stuff. But that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There are people who almost, like my niece. She is intentionally eating fish. Like, she has chosen to completely say, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. Look at me. I've been eating fish this whole time. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. And in fact, this is what the nuclear industry is going on, is that people, A, do not discuss their cancers and diseases, and B, when they do get it, they refuse to acknowledge it. It's because of that fish they might have eaten. They think it's the smoking cigarettes that they did, the chemicals, the junk food, their bad lifestyle. It's everything else in their life but the nuclear.
Right. And,
this is where we're up against.
The group of individuals, the racial group of individuals that has seen the highest uptick in cancers since 2008 are Asians. Who eats more fish than anybody else on the planet?
Right,
Asians.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Like 90% of their protein source is fish. So it's ironic, isn't it? And see, there again, we as citizen scientists and journalists, we can see the correlations, but I feel sometimes, Lonnie, so utterly helpless. I wonder why I even bother, but there's a part of me the moral part of me that says I can't keep my mouth shut. I won't do it.
That's kind of how I feel exactly.
But if I can wake up a few people, then that's what I'm going to do.
And get people active. I mean, really, the only thing is, this is the issue. People say, well, the government's really corrupt and it's not going to do anything. But if it got thousands of people calling up, I mean, they stopped immigration in one day. When Obama was going to give a huge portion of people some type of amnesty, I don't remember what the issue was. I mean, they called up, they shut down the White House. When they were going to take away their health care, they shut down the phone lines. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it does matter. But the issue is people, at least in America, the Friendly Atom program was highly effective. People just do not view nuclear waste as a threat.
Right.
They just
They're
do not.
Uneducated.
Well, even if they know, like the people living around Sane Environmentalist nuclear, I have nieces. I have two nieces. My sister, her two children, and her son lived there till recently, but they were all down there. And my other sister and her husband are down there. They live.
Yeah, people
in
are
San
surfing
Diego
in the
Bay.
surf literally right next to that plant.
Yes.
Within 100 yards of those half-inch thick stainless steel dry casks.
Yes. And you know what?
That's it.
I have a client who, this was 2 years ago, her 12-year-old son is a surfer, and they live very near there, Newport, and he was always surfing in the surf down there. And I'm like, you cannot let him go in the surf. She's like, what am I going to do? Tell him not to? And I'm like, yeah. As a matter of fact, yes. Because
yeah, if he's 12.
If he's going to do it, at least go to a section of the California coast where it's not in direct lineup to San Onofre or Diablo Canyon. You know what I mean? Go somewhere.
Yes.
But the problem is, let's say you go up to L.A., you go around the L.A. area, the chemical waste that gets out in that ocean makes you sick. So it's just such a complete mess. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's stunning. This is why it's interesting that you have only recently discovered about Fukushima, and you're already planning to take a trip around the country to test for radioactivity and hopefully get people engaged.
Absolutely. Exactly. You know, I would love to, I'm going to ride my bike completely around the coastline of the United States, and I'm going to test for radionuclides all the way around. I've started planning my trip. I'm going to start in northern Washington and work my way all the way down to San Diego, and then jump across to Brownsville and all the way around the Gulf Coast and down around Florida, and then back up to northern Maine.
Oh. And when are you leaving?
I should be starting on the road probably in May, middle of May, I think, of this year.
What are you going to
next year?
2018.
Yes.
Right. So in about 6 months from now.
Yes, and I know that it will be a difficult mission and a difficult journey, and as far as how I'm going to eat and all that, I don't know, but I'm just going to have faith in the universe that I'm doing the right thing and that the support I need will happen. You know, I do have a GoFundMe at the Sane Environmentalist. You can fund me if you want. Things that I'm going to need for the trip, prior to the trip, are like a good GoPro with a stick.
You'll need a good radio. It'd be optimal if you could have a good Geiger counter. A good $500 or $700.
A good friend of mine sent me a decent Geiger counter. It works okay.
Yeah, but it'd be nice if you had or even, like that guy that's in Japan, he has two of them. He puts two out. And he doesn't say anything. Yeah. They're not allowed to talk. But what he does is he goes on these road trips and takes these scenic pictures. And then he sets up his stick that holds two Geiger counters and sets it up in the field and comes back after a few minutes. And it's like beep, 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 way off the charts, 4.3, 3.5, 8. One day it was like 14 in the dirt, 14.6. It was like way off the charts.
Yeah.
And this is in Fukushima Prefecture.
PEPCO is having their workers at the Fukushima site not wear protective gear.
I guess why bother?
Well, I think the thing is they want the media and the Japanese people to see, it's completely safe. We've got it all cleaned up. Yeah, I know we can't even get close to reactors 1 or 2, but hey,
Wow.
we got an ice wall that's 70% complete. And we can't seem to freeze that last section. Yeah, and do you believe anything they say? I don't believe anything they say. They're
I don't either.
They're part of the deal. TEPCO is part of that greedy energy industry that decided we can put 6 of the most unsafe, unstable nuclear reactors literally within feet of the Pacific Ocean. And they'll as long as there's no earthquakes, they'll be fine. It's a good thing Japan isn't prone to earthquakes, and yeah, we could put the backup generators and the diesels right on their water there, and they'll be fine. They didn't care. They didn't want to spend the money okay, we're going to have to put the generators 50 feet in the air just in case there is a tsunami so that we won't lose our power to cool these things, But they didn't, because that would have cost money. And so there again, it really does boil down to the chasing the dollar, follow the money. It's all about the money. They call it clean, free energy, basically. They have to pay a certain amount for these fuel bundles, and then after that, it's just like free money for them.
What's really annoying in the most egregious way is it's not really free. It's not free to the people who are sick. It's not free to the people who are sterile, who have immune diseases. Look at what's going on in St. Louis. St. Louis is an open, gaping wound. And they literally are denying the cancers that people have gotten from living next door to a nuclear burning dump site. People are sick, constantly sick. They live in fear. Is my kid going to get cancer or not? Am I going to make it till I'm an adult? I mean, the people there, there are activists there who are resorting to old style tactics of chaining themselves to equipment because they want the government to take action quicker. And yet their own 2 senators are ho-hum on the whole deal. It's astounding the disregard for human life that happens at the government level when they say, oh, yes, I care about you people. Oh, yes, I fully understand. And yet there's no emergency for the people of St. Louis to get them away from the nuclear waste. Just as there's no emergency on Puerto Rico to get them back up to the electrical grid from the government. I mean, it's complete disregard for life on our planet and in our country.
Yeah. Well, there is a bigger picture. I'm not sure what it is, and you may be right. It may be that there's an agenda to actually depopulate the planet, but it seems silly to me why you would want to depopulate the planet and make the environment unlivable for the remaining chosen ones that you have left over. It's not like, with this Fukushima thing, with the Hanford thing, with all of that, it's not going to go away. It's like, for instance, Rocky Flats, where I grew up like within miles of Rocky Flats in Colorado. And that little Geiger counter I have read 0.4 microsieverts per hour everywhere along the Front Range.
Wow.
That's pretty freaking high,
Yeah.
Considering that here in the desert of Arizona, I get 0.1, maybe 0.2 sometimes.
Wow.
And then I'm surrounded by minerals here. So there's a good chance that the background is a little higher because of the mineral because there's no nuclear power plants anywhere near me.
And there's houses in Rocky Flats where that 0.40 was.
Yes. Uh-huh. And I was getting 0.5 a couple times. And in Denver, it was pretty consistently 0.48, almost 0.5.
That's so outrageous.
That's microsieverts. But when you think of the, it's an accumulated thing.
Right.
And so
that's right.
People are just constantly being. It's like you can look at it that way.
Yeah, but this is where the nuclear industry gets away with it, because people don't immediately die from it. You don't boom, get sick, you don't get cancer right away unless you have a lot of other factors going on in your life, like it's a cacophony. Cancer is like climbing a stair step, right? You get cancer as your body breaks down. I mean, this is the real, unless you're a child, the younger you are, the infants, the children, they're much more susceptible to it, which is why cancer rates are higher. But I also contend that I think the Wi-Fi is affecting children at a higher rate. They're at great risk from the Wi-Fi. So those two things combined. Yeah, and those two things combined. And the microwave kills nutrients in the food, so it's sort of a double whammy. You know what I mean? It's just all of these things that we're doing without regard to life. I mean, Brian Porter was on the show yesterday and was saying, we got to get back to small communities. We have to get back to the earth. We have to get back to having sustainable living and not, these mega modern ideas of we can just make everything into a machine. But that's where the IAEA and the so-called scientists, they differ with us in thinking that is God's gift to humanity. We have the right to change the planet. So we are contaminating the planet as it was. We have the ability to make it how we want it to be, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and I would say that most likely we will see environmental damage, all of the radiation poisoning that we're putting into the environment, before we start seeing global warming.
What did you say?
Global warming is the radionuclides that we're pumping into the environment are damaging.
Yeah, certain are. That's exactly what I said to Dr.
Global warming is in the same time frame.
Look, I think global warming is just environmental catastrophe. We're having the climate is changing because the environment is collapsing. I mean, that's really what we're having is an environmental collapse. This is not just global warming.
Everywhere.
And being mutated. That's what Organic Slant on YouTube. He has a garden, a guy, I don't know his name even. He's a guy who has a video channel on YouTube called Organic Slant. He has a garden in Ohio, and he shows videos of his mutated vegetables and flowers. I mean, he showed a mutated bell pepper plant in the last week that he has growing on his tree. It looks like a regular bell pepper, except that on 1/4 of it, you know how they sort of make like a flower, right? They pop out and they become round. Well, on 1/4 of it, it poked out like Pinocchio nose. It was like he was growing a tree on the side of his bell pepper. He has had pictures of his flowers where there's flowers growing outside of the pistil, out in the very center of the flower stem. There's growing another flower. And this is in Ohio. So it is happening.
Ohio is totally surrounded by nuclear power plants.
Yes, and in the direct lineup of the wind. And in the direct lineup of the wind train from Fukushima. So they're bombarded pretty heavily there. So,
as is the West Coast right now.
The question is here, what do we do about it? How do we reconcile ourselves to this state of being in this environment here? When, I say we need to be jumping up and down at our elected officials. People are ho-hum about that. I don't think we have much options but to keep doing what we think we can do. That's our option. Exactly. Just keep doing what we think we can. If my suggestions don't make sense to you, do something else that you think does work better. And if yours works better than mine, call me up and let me know. Send me an email and get in touch with me and tell me, hey, I want to talk about what I'm doing because it's working right now and we need to get everybody on board. because this is an emergency here. We're coming on 7 years of Fukushima, and they are about to have an Olympics there in 2 years. 7 years. It's going to be 9 years when the Olympics happen, and they are going to have it there. And they're having surfing there. Can you believe it?
Yeah, in Fukushima.
Yes.
They're going to have the baseball tournament in Fukushima Prefecture.
Yes. Yes.
So it's, yeah.
And when those athletes die of a heart attack,
people called the media and said, you know what? If you let the Olympic Committee know that if they hold the Olympics there, we're not watching it. Because there you go. What is it? It's all about the money. So as soon as the International Olympic Committee learns their sponsors are dropping out because people aren't going to watch if they have it in Fukushima, they may just have to go, well, okay, what are we going to do? We got to change it. And they're already building stadiums, and it's insanity.
Levy reported that some of those stadiums are being built out of reclaimed wood from Fukushima.
There you go. The whole area is
they're going to be putting
that whole island.
They're going to be asking the visitors to sit on radioactive particles, and they're going to be asking the athletes to compete in highly radioactive air. How many heart attacks do we think we're going to see during those Olympics?
I don't know. Hopefully none, but
I bet you
some.
We are going to see some. I guarantee you we will see some. Some people collapsing. And will it be blamed? Will they say, gee, does this have to do with their levels of radioactivity? They'll say, no. I wonder what's wrong with his family. Let's look up his family history. Oh, his father had a heart attack. That's how that story is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and it's because the nuclear industry is the nuclear industry is the media in America, and they own the major news sources.
Right, and so that's why we don't hear a thing about it, But if you got with the sponsors, see, that's what we're learning with the whole NFL thing. If you get to the sponsors, then sponsors they control the purse strings, okay? Because it's basically our money, we the people, our money being funneled upward. And if we would say LG, they're going to be one of the sponsors. If it's like,
Nike will
sponsor these Olympic Games, I will never buy another LG product again. And if 20,000 people call LG and say, you know what, don't do it, he's going to go, well, okay, this is going to create a groundswell, so guess what? It's going to sponsor the Olympic Games. That's a huge blow to the Olympic Games. It's like, ooh, we lost a big sponsor. Then the other sponsors are going to be like, well, are they going to boycott us? And so basically, we the people do have the power of the choice over, because it's our money. All of it is our money.
So on that, Jerome, we're going to have to end because we have 30 seconds. You've been listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show with the Sane Environmentalist, Jerome Aber. You can find him on YouTube. Thanks, Jerome, for joining us. I hope you come back in a couple weeks. Well, I think we're losing Jerome's signal, but put your courage feet on, you guys. It is up to us. Take action. It really does matter what we do. Tomorrow will be a repeat. I don't have a pre-recorded. We will talk to you guys on Friday. Take care.